Hello students, the topic of discussion today is cathode ray tube experiment and discovery of electron by J.J. Thomson. So before we proceed any further into this discussion, let us discuss as to why these experiments were conducted. So the main idea behind conducting these experiments is to know the nature of atom and what exactly is atom, what it constitutes of. In 1450 BC, there was a Greek philosopher named as Democritus, came up with the idea of the fundamental particle called atom. He believed that if we cut an apple and keep on dividing into half, subsequently the finest particle which we will reach, which cannot be divided further, it is called atom. Similarly, an Indian thinker in 2nd century BC named as Kannad, he came up with the concept of Parmanu. So what he postulated is that Parmanu is the indestructible particle. Like it is the finest particle, it is the smallest particle, and it cannot be further divided. It is indestructible. So the concept of Parmanu again was from the 2nd century BC thinker Kannad. In the modern time, the main concept of atom came from Dalton. So his postulation or his theory primarily had three parts. First, all substances are made up of indivisible particle called atom. Secondly, atoms of same element are alike and have same mass. The third postulation which he gave, that atoms combine together to form compound. So Dalton's atomic theory was one of the most accepted theory, but it was not able to answer a few questions related to some experiments and their results which came along during that time. It wasn't able to explain concepts such as static charge or magnetic field or be it electricity. So before any discovery of cathode ray or any discovery of electron, electricity was something which was already discovered. So now our main discussion which we are going to have is cathode ray tube. So let's start with cathode ray tube now. So cathode ray tube was actually made by a scientist called William Crookes. So what William Crookes did actually, William Crookes was that scientist who studied electrical discharge through gases. So he used to do some experiments with respect to gases as to study how the behavior of electricity is in presence of gas or how the gas conducts. So during those experiments, he conducted a series of changes in his models, and finally what he came along was this cathode ray tube. So what William Crookes exactly did is, firstly he took a glass tube and removed the gases from here. He added a vacuum pump to it and removed the gases from here, and the pressure which he maintained over here was 0.01 mm of Hg. So we know that 1 atmospheric pressure equals to 760 mm of Hg. So the pressure over here has been drastically reduced to 0.01 mm of Hg. So what he did next is that he added a power source to this low pressure discharge tube. So he added two electrodes over here, and the potential difference over here is 10 kV to 20 kV. So basically there has been a very high voltage that has been maintained across the low pressure tube. So here we have anode plate, and here we have cathode plate. So it's not that William Crookes was able to come to the conclusion that okay, if I am able to maintain this pressure and this high voltage, I'll be able to achieve a desired result. This was actually a trial and error, after which he was able to find that when this low pressure is achieved and we have this potential difference of 10 to 20 kilovolt, then in that case he was able to observe reading in his ammeter. That means that in a tube with a very low pressure of 0.01 mm of Hg and a potential difference of 10 to 20 kilovolt, he was able to pass the electricity through gas. So this was his main achievement. He came to the postulation that electricity conducts through gases in a low pressure and a very high voltage condition. So the voltage here is specifically 10 to 20 kilovolt. So in order to further investigate into the matter as to how this conduction is taking place, what he did is that he made some changes to this model. So in order to further understand the experiments conducted by William Crookes, we'll just see as to what he did. So we have already discussed about the parts of the cathode ray tube. This is the glass plate, this is the cathode plate, and this is the anode plate. But there has been a fundamental change which has been made over here. In order to understand that, let's go through the model once. So you can see over here, there has been a hole which has been made in the anode plate of the cathode ray tube. And in addition to that, the wall of the cathode ray tube has been painted with zinc sulfide. So why the zinc sulfide has been painted over here? Because it is fluorescent in nature. So what exactly did William Crookes did over here is that he made a hole in the plate and he was able to show that there was a glow in the painted region of the tube. He was able to show that in this region of the tube there was a glow which was occurring subsequently as the current was passing through the gas in the discharge tube. Since these rays were originating from the cathode plate of the cathode ray tube experiment, William Crookes called this as cathode rays. So in 1810, William Crookes discovered cathode ray. So what all we can postulate from the experiment conducted by William Crookes is that there is a necessary condition that 0.01 mm of Hg pressure has to be maintained and a very high potential difference of 10 to 20 kilovolt has to be maintained in order to produce cathode ray. And these cathode ray, when they strike the surface of zinc sulfide, they produce a glow on the painted surface. The discovery of cathode ray made more and more scientists curious, and this led to further experimentation with the cathode rays, with further changes being made to the model, and accordingly this led to the discovery of electron by J.J. Thomson. So our next point of discussion is discovery of electron by J.J. Thomson. So let's move ahead, guys. So in 1897, another scientist named as J.J. Thomson made some structural changes to the existing cathode ray tube of William Crookes. So as we already know that we have already discussed the parts, that it consists of a tube, a cathode plate, an anode plate, and a power source, and this is a new change which has been made over here. So let's get back to our initial discussion. So what exactly J.J. Thomson did over here is that he placed a screen over here in order to understand its nature. So he was able to understand that under the similar condition as mentioned by William Crookes, that 0.01 mm of Hg pressure and a potential difference of 10 to 20 kilovolt, he was able to produce cathode ray. So when he used this anode plate as a barrier, what he was able to observe that he was able to see a shadow. If you see over here, there is a shadow which is being casted on the film. So he was able to see property similar to light. Why? Why do we say that it is a property similar to light? Reason being, since light travels in straight line, so they are able to cast shadow. So he was able to come to the conclusion that cathode ray travels in straight line. So this was his first postulation. This is our postulation number 1 of the experiment conducted by J.J. Thomson. So now let's move to the second phase of his experiment in order to understand the nature of cathode ray. So as you can see, there has been some structural changes which has been again made by J.J. Thomson in order to understand the nature of. So this is the wheel which we can see. So he placed a rotating wheel and it was in the path of cathode ray. And how do we know that it is in the path of cathode ray? Since we know that cathode ray travels in straight line, so obviously the path of cathode ray will lie between the cathode and anode plate. So what he exactly did over here is that he placed a free wheel in the path of cathode ray, and the same when same conditions were met, that is 0.01 mm of Hg and a very high potential difference of 10 to 20 kilovolt, he made an observation that the wheel which is placed over here, it is rotating. When do we see that a wheel is rotating? So let's say, for example, in a windmill you can see a wheel is rotating, or you can say in a turbine wheel is rotating, but there is a necessary condition in order to rotate the wheel. What is that necessary condition? There should be some kinetic energy to move that. So one thing can be clearly established over here is that this cathode ray, whatever its nature is, it is having kinetic energy. So we know that kinetic energy is 1 by 2 mv square. So as per SI units, m is mass in kg and v is velocity in meter per second. So definitely there is some velocity since the particle is traveling, or if the cathode ray is traveling from one location to another, from one position of cathode plate to another position of anode plate, so there is definitely velocity, but we are able to see the motion of wheel. So the fact can be established that cathode ray consists of particles with mass. So the main postulation which J.J. Thomson came with this experimentation, with the change made to the existing model of cathode ray tube, he was able to establish that kinetic energy is present in cathode ray. So in order to further understand the nature, he made few more changes on the model. He placed two electric plates in the path of cathode ray. Since we know that cathode ray travels in straight line, so what he did was that he placed a positive electric plate and a negative electric plate adjacent to each other in the path of cathode ray. And what can we see over here is, so this is the positive plate and this is the negative plate. So once the field was applied across the positive and the negative plate, J.J. Thomson observed that the particle was getting deflected towards the positive plate. It was getting deflected towards the positive plate because the particle went straight right up. It didn't went straight ahead and directly collided with the screen. It didn't go down. It went straight up. That means that the particle got deflected from its path towards the positive plate. So the observation which has been made by J.J. Thomson was that cathode ray is attracted to positive plate. So definitely it constitutes or it has the nature of negative charge. As it is being attracted to positive plate, it is having negative charge. So we can say that the final conclusion of this experimentation was that cathode ray is made up of negatively charged particles. So this was one of the biggest revelation for J.J. Thomson, that cathode ray is made up of negatively charged particle. So now let's move on to his next change which was made to the model in order to further understand the nature. So once J.J. Thomson found that the cathode ray consists of negatively charged particle, he did further changes to the existing model of the cathode ray tube. So what he did now was that he removed the plates and now he placed the tube in the magnetic field in order to see that how the particles or the cathode ray behaves in presence of magnetic field. So it has been already established by J.J. Thomson that cathode ray consists of negatively charged particle, and when any charged particle is in motion, it produces magnetic field. So since we know that there is a charged particle that is negative in nature and it is in motion, so it will have its own magnetic field, and in presence of an external magnetic field it is bound to interact with that. So again what he did was that he used his previous model, removed the plate, just he placed a new magnets. So we can see over here that in the linear path of the cathode ray he placed a magnet so that the particle interacts with it. And to his surprise, he was able to find that in the similar fashion, as in the electric plates, there was again deflection in the cathode ray particles. The cathode ray particle actually, instead of going straight this time, or let's say going upwards, it bent downwards. So definitely there is change. And once he reversed the polarity, so let's say now you can see over here that we have south on the right hand side and the north on left hand side. But let's say what he did was that he reversed the polarity. So in that case, he was able to find that the deflection again, the direction of deflection was not the same as it was previous. So the main agenda of conducting this experiment was to come to the conclusion that cathode ray deflects in presence of magnetic field. So there were a few series of other experiments also conducted by J.J. Thomson in order to further know as to how or what the nature is. So he placed the magnetic field as well as the electric field, and with some changes and trying to balance out both the magnetic field and the electric field. So let's say in the given model, if there was only electric field present, the deflection was going to be towards the positive plate. So the reflection was going to be towards the positive plate. If there was no any plate or any magnetic field, the particle traveled in straight line. And when the magnetic field was placed, the particle again got deflected. But what J.J. Thomson did was that he was able to maintain a balance or equilibrium between the magnetic field and the electric field, and in presence of both, he was again able to make the cathode ray travel in a straight line. So this was both combination of magnetic field and the electric field. So there were a series of other experimentation which he did simultaneously in addition to the previous one which we have discussed. So what he did was that he tried experimenting with different cathode material. So let's say he took material A and made cathode and anode out of it, and used the gas, let's say X. And again he took material B and made cathode and anode out of it, and used the gas Y. So again, what he was able to observe, that all the previous properties which he came along, that is straight line, negative charge, deflection in magnetic field, again this is in electric field, he was able to establish that all the properties were met even if the gases are different, or even if the material of cathode and anode are different. So what he was able to conclude over here is that whatever the material of cathode or anode is, if the necessary conditions are met, that is 0.01 mm of Hg and a high potential difference of 10 to 20 kilovolt, whatever the material of anode or cathode is, or whatever is the gas in the tube present, he was able to find similar characteristics in all the situations. So what he concluded, that irrespective of any material of anode or cathode or any gas, the nature of cathode ray remains always the same. So what he concluded, that the negatively charged particle of the cathode ray, which he called as electron, was universal in nature. That means that it was the basic constituent of all matter. So this was again one of a very big discovery by J.J. Thomson in the year 1897, which shed further light on the nature of the cathode ray or the electron, as we say. Going further, so he was able to conduct a few more experiment with the cathode ray. So what he was able to observe that if a thin metallic plate, let's say we made an anode of thin metallic plate. So he was able to observe that there was a glow on this metallic plate. The plate went bright. And as to the reason why a plate went bright, so let's say for example, if a metal is heated red hot, so why it is going bright or red hot? Because it is able to emit photons. So here again we can say that it is bright because it is emitting photons, or we can say light. So this particle which is coming from the cathode, it has potential to ionize. So we can say that cathode ray has ionizing power. So this was again one of a very big discovery by J.J. Thomson as far as the cathode ray was concerned. So finally let us summarize the findings of J.J. Thomson. Firstly, cathode ray travels in straight line. Cathode ray consists of particle with kinetic energy. The shadow experiment tells us that cathode ray travels in straight line. The moving of a wheel in the cathode ray concludes that it consists of particle with kinetic energy. It consists of negative charge particle because it gets attracted towards the positive plate. It deflects in presence of magnetic field. It is having ionizing power. The nature of cathode ray is independent of so it is one of the basic constituent of matter. So taking these things into consideration, J.J. Thomson further came up with another atomic model of his own. So what that model was called was J.J. Thomson's plum pudding model. So our next point of discussion will be J.J. Thomson's plum pudding model. So let's start that. So after the discovery of electron in 1897 by J.J. Thomson, J.J. Thomson came up with a new model which is known as plum pudding model. So in 1904, J.J. Thomson came up with his plum pudding model. So interesting thing to note over here is that in 1897, by series of experiments conducted, he was able to discover negatively charged particle called electron. But till now there was no any discovery made as far as protons or the nucleus of atom. However, one thing was established fact that atom is neutral in nature. So in order to explain the neutral nature of the atom, J.J. Thomson came up with the idea of plum pudding model. So as we can see over here in his plum pudding model, there are negatively charged particles which are actually embedded in a sphere or in a sea of positive charge. So this is very clear from that he was trying to establish the fact that since atom is neutral in nature, so these negatively charged particle from the cathode ray tube has to be present in the medium of positive charge. So this was his postulation, but once the discovery of nucleus came into existence, it was established that it is positive in nature. So J.J. Thomson's plum pudding model no longer was valid. So guys, all in all, what we discussed today was how William Crookes, through a series of experiment through his discharge tube, discovered the cathode ray, and further with more changes to the existing model of cathode ray tube made by William Crookes, J.J. Thomson was able to establish the existence of electron, and this is how the electron was discovered, and subsequently he postulated his plum pudding model, which however was discarded in the future with the discovery of nucleus and proton. So that was all for today. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.